Political Action Coalition interviews of Board of Trustee candidates for the Long Beach Community College District. This coalition consists of representation from the full-time faculty Political Action Committee, the part-time faculty union, and the classified staff union. You will be given 1 hour to answer our 15 questions. Let us begin with introductions. My name is Janae Hunt. I am the full-time faculty Political Action Committee chair.
I'm Jonathan Eckman. I am the LAC LAC representative. Flashback.
Susan Trask, classified AFT communications officer.
Thomas Hamilton, AFT President, Classified Employees.
Catherine Jennings, I'm the PAC liaison and I teach full-time in the reading department.
My name is Mildred Cepeda. I'm a member of the PAC Association.
I'm Jennifer Nellis, Vice Chair of PAC and Teaching Management.
Carol Sable, part-time, teaching the math department.
So I want to have the first question. Explain 3 tangible improvements that you would like to see at Long Beach City College.
Okay, first of all, in terms of the programs we offer, I would, you know where I stood on the program discontinuance. At this point, it's very important when it comes to accreditation. They talk about that. One of the surest signs that they look for as a bad sign is with a board that doesn't get along. We make a decision, somebody can dissent, but when once the decision's been made, we stick to it. We work together as a board. But the issue is, come April, we will have a different board. At least one member will be different, and that will. So if I'm not, you heard where I stand. If I'm not continuing to rage against the rest of the members, I thought you deserved at least that explanation. But if you also need to understand that, come April there will be a different board, and maybe that's the time to revisit that. So that would, come April, be something to think about as definitely a tangible improvement. Secondly, not just the possibility of the old programs, but in terms of the new programs, it's very important that we continue to, in terms of the presentations we request to the board that we stay in touch with individuals that can tell us about the workforce needs of our local economy in terms of what new programs. I'm sure there's other stuff out there that we haven't offered in the past that can, bring in more FTEs and, improve the look of the campus, improve the, improve our ability to live up to our mission statement. And thirdly, I would emphasize, and I might be cheating here by saying tangible, but I think to most of you would say that skipping ahead to the next question on morale is definitely, as far as I'm concerned, a tangible result. I know that there's been a feeling about the current board not involving all stakeholders of the community as well as they should. I'm sure that I myself would not be excluded from that criticism, and I would like to improve on that in the coming 4 years, and especially with new board members. I think we have a chance to really make some progress in that area.
Okay. In the past, the Western Association of Schools and Colleges and the Accreditation Commission of Community and Junior Colleges teams found a lack of communication and collaboration between the administration and the faculty at LBCC. Recently, the CCA president has stated that morale at LBC is at an all-time low. How might this situation be improved? And it's almost like a 2-part question, okay, which you basically touched on a little bit. How might the situation be improved, and what is the role of the board in bringing about change?
I think the biggest thing is, the board has to better communicate as individuals, more individual meetings. I think in the past, my first term on the board, the communication was very low, and it was a little bit frustrating to me, when I asked for the support of the union representatives during my second term, because there was the feeling that I hadn't been open enough to meet with them personally. And I was kind of like miffed because it's a two-way street. You got to reach out. And I really liked the way that in my second term, a lot of the people that I'm looking at right now have really exemplified the kind of change that I wanted to see. I mean, I've sat down with you guys a lot, and I think it's really helped. I mean, I think that I probably in my first 4 years made some uninformed decisions, things I would like to have back, that would not have happened if the people that were in your place 4 years ago had been better about sitting down. So I can't speak for the other 4 members. I don't know about how often they've met with you, but that's the number one thing is individuals that meet with you, and that are the concerns that you bring up to us when you meet, that we relay it on to the superintendent president. Because as far as a lot of the specifics, I mean, we emphasize that the superintendent president runs the college, he and his staff, but at the end of the day, the board is his boss. I mean, we don't directly deal with a lot of the issues that is concerned, but we want him to deal with it, and when he's not, it's the role of the board to call it to his attention. And it was about a year ago, last time we did the superintendent president's evaluation. I mean, I do like some of the improvements that we are currently making in the way that we evaluate him, especially some of my colleagues that believe in a much more limited role of the board than I do, who kind of look at it like, well, it's our job to evaluate the president and that's it. Well, even if you look at it that way, I figure if that is going to be all we do, we need to do it in a more effective manner, see to it that we hold him accountable for his actions that he takes in dealing with us. And I know a lot of you are very unhappy with President Oakley in general, but I feel that when it comes to this new evaluation process, that he is not really the kind of guy who is putting up a brick wall against anybody that would offer that kind of constructive criticism when it comes to his evaluation. I called to his attention specifically some of the criticisms that came in of him about not involving people in the promised pathways. In fact, I heard a lot of people in the reviews that were critical of him consistently, but what really stood out to me in those responses, I took my time and I read them. I as a trustee didn't just say how I felt about it. I read prior to the board doing the evaluation, what all the other people that evaluated him said, and it really stood out, the people that said about in terms of collegiality and working with the individual stakeholders, that they thought he'd been very good until that point. That was the point at which they were frustrated, and so I knew that was a point of concern. I brought it up to him, and he kind of did a mea culpa on that, so yeah, I realize, and we'll do it better next time. And I really believe that in that area he's trying to improve, and when we have a slight change in the board next year, at least one member will be different. I think that we can continue to make positive strides in that direction.
The majority of community college students need remediation. Recent actions have shifted the focus of LBCCD to a transfer institution. What do you think about this shift?
I think that it indicates what's really wrong with education at all levels, not just the community college level. And I think I speak as the only current member of the board that is really in a position for my day job to see that problem with the expectation, this cookie cutter approach. We expect every student is going to come out the same. Every student should be on a career path that surrounds a 4-year university. It's disappointing. It's very disappointing that I can't promise more there, because the ACCJC, like it or not, is expecting us to, the sole measure of our success as a college is based on our how many people we transfer, and I really think that sucks. You know it, I've said it repeatedly. I don't think I need to repeat myself in a lot of other things I've said right there at the board meetings. But I think one thing we can do is start asking the right questions. At least communicate. We partner with the 4-year universities. I think that the same kind of thing can be done partnering with K through 12. Talk about why are they sending us people that need remediation. And I think I'm the only, like I said, I'm the only one that really is in the position to know, because literally, the district that I teach in, the superintendent, John Deasy, it is, if you look at his contract, the incentive pay, what gets his bonus, is that he increases the graduation rate, which to me is like the city council is going to give the police chief a raise if he meets his goal of reducing crime by showing that he's reduced the number of arrests. I mean, it is so clear that, a lot of people know it anyway, but to people that are actually in the K through 12 classroom, it is so clear that the agenda, the reform agenda at the K through 12 level is about lowering the bar so that all can pass, but none can achieve, none can come to college prepared. We need to, we can't change that, but we can start asking the right questions and raising the issue to put the demands that to stop. And lastly, in response to that question, I would like to say that it's a shame that so much pressure is put on us to spend our money and resources on transfer success, because that's what we're judged on. But, and particularly when the budget situation's been so bleak in the last 4 years, that we've had to eliminate other stuff as we've been spending more money on that, because it's an unfunded mandate on us from above. But with the passage of Prop 30, with what I believe is going to be an improving economy over the next 4 years, I look at it as an opportunity that doing that stuff is not going to come at the expense of doing the other stuff, which isn't what we get evaluated on, but it is nonetheless important having an effective community college.
In what ways have your votes ensured the LBCC?
Okay, action.
In what ways have your votes ensured that LBCCD has provided quality jobs for LBCCD employees? And how has this led to a stronger local economy?
I believe that, like my vote to save the vocational programs is probably a good example of that question, but also it's the kind of thing that when we make decisions as a college about what programs we're going to offer, once again, I said this earlier about having the stuff we train our students for match the local workforce needs. And there's an area I think we have been good in. I'm very proud of the alternate fuels program we have. That's, to me, it's something I believe in passionately that goes beyond my interest in education in terms of a green future. And whether I agree with it or not, bottom line is the country is moving that way, and I think it's good that we have programs there. And in fact, when we were talking about the program discontinuance, I remember that we had representatives from that program that made a presentation, and some of my colleagues on the board were a little bit miffed that they took our time to show that, and Eli said that never was on the list of things to be discontinued. And so that's not a point of disagreement. I think all of us believe very strongly in that. And maybe I kind of digressed a little bit, but because it's just one example. But I just think in terms of, to answer the question, to strengthen the local economy, that when we make decisions about what programs we're going to offer in the future, we do it. Because I kind of look at that as a model program, model for all kinds of other things, that we look at what's the needs of the future, just that we offer other programs along the same lines that we do with our alternate fuels program.
Please discuss your understanding of Long Beach City College Community District's budget and budget reserves. What should be the top priorities for budget allocation? What experience do you have with budgeting, auditing, and/or accountability?
Yes, I think that I've made very clear from the very first time I was running, when I was just a candidate for the board in my first term, that it has to prioritize the classroom in the budget, that it can't be cut. And I said a couple of questions ago how it's frustrating how much of the budget, our hands is tight, we're expected to spend more and more on something that I've indicated how, much I disagree with the focus on it. But at the same time, with the improving economy, having to do that should not mean cutting back on things which to me are the top priority, keeping, prioritizing the classroom. And the other thing about the budget reserves, there's been a lot of when we've done the budget for the 7 years that I've been here, I've heard a lot of criticism about the size of the reserve, that we have too much, it could be put into the classroom. And in the previous years, you know, I went along with it. I kind of explained to other people that said that we should not have a reserve that's that high, that you know, we need to be prepared for the worst case scenario, you know, and with the economy in such bad shape, that there was good reason to do so. But with it improving, that's changed. And I'm not the only current member of the board that feels that it's at this point we are doing it, setting it a little high, that just because things have improved, we shouldn't go back up to 5.5% reserve. It was Trustee Clark that first brought up the issue that, you know, with all the cutbacks, 5.5% is too high at this point. We should go back down to 5, and the extra 0.5 with the specific instruction that be directed toward the classroom. And you'll recall I seconded that motion, so he and I have advocated for that, and I want to continue to do so for the rest of my term. And when we have a new board in April, I'll do the same thing.
Although Prop 30 will serve to restore some monies to the community college system, recent trends have defunded public education in general and simultaneously opened doors to privatization. What are your thoughts about these trends?
Well, I think that once again, it's something that I see firsthand in my job, the emphasis on privatization of education. I talk specifically with the people that deny that this is privatization, and you know, I've gotten into it with them and it's gotten nasty. So all I can say is I'm very aware of it, and I'm aware of the danger, and I've spoken up about it from my seat up there on the board, and I think you know where I stand on the issue. I will continue to do so in the next 4 years. Raise awareness on the issue.
Okay. Since July 2010, President Oakley has been awarded a 4% annual pay increase, as well as, quote, reasonable expenses, end quote, including moving expenses, $2,500 mileage per month, and an 8% STRS contribution. In that same time period, over 200 staff have experienced reduction in force, 11 vocational programs have been discontinued, and 13 faculty have experienced reduction in force. LBCCD awarded a $20,000 pay increase to the Executive Vice President in fall of 2012. Similarly, while the number of faculty, staff, and students, FTES, full-time equivalent student, has declined since 2005, the number of administrators has risen. What is your stance with regards to the discrepancy between administrative increases and classroom staff and faculty reductions? What should you do to ensure that monies are restored into the classroom and administrative costs are reduced?
I think that first of all, it's unfortunate the way that we are always, when it comes to administration at the college, we're put up against the way that you know, administrators compete between here and the private sector, and it sucks that in the private sector there is such a disparity between executive pay and the people that actually make the company run. And I really hate making the argument that you know, people are going to leave for the corporate world if we don't offer them these salaries this high. But yeah, I'm right there with you in thinking that it's not just. And I wish I had had more input on how we can avoid that problem I mentioned with individuals that would leave for the corporate world, where the pay ratio is even more out of whack than what you just described. But specifically to address a couple of the points that came up here, the contract that was voted on in 2010 for the superintendent president, and the making one of our vice presidents executive vice president, which included a substantial pay increase. Both of those issues were things that were kind of discussed. They had to be as personnel issues were discussed in closed session, which I'm not at liberty to divulge the specifics that went on down there, and then they came up subsequently on a consent calendar at the open session. All I can say about each of those two votes is, without divulging any specifics of closed session, is that it was felt by a majority of the members that this was justified, that at the time President Oakley was interviewing somewhere else and they wanted to keep him here. A majority of us felt that way, and not unanimous. But when it came up for the consent calendar, all of us, even those that didn't agree, felt that to pull it from the consent calendar when it was not going to be opposed was just going to be seen as a petty thing. It was going to be seen as personal, people that I work with. And that's, I think, the best I can explain it. I think you guys can figure out some stuff without my divulging any private information.
Please provide examples during your tenure as board trustee that you have understood and supported the collective bargaining process and employee rights.
I believe that it's important that when it comes to collective bargaining that each side be willing to meet halfway, be willing to talk with one another, and also that the negotiators work together, but they answer to their superiors, and just as you have your negotiator that they can be removed if they're not doing what you feel is their job, the same thing applies to us. Particularly my first year on the board, when there was some very contentious contract issues with the classified employees who really just could not work with our negotiator at the time. And it subsequently resulted in the negotiations only ended when then Vice President Oakley went over the head of Mr. Covert to offer what he was steadfastly refusing to do. And, you know, I had consistently felt that Spencer had been a major obstacle to the ability of the collective bargaining process to work smoothly. He was subsequently removed in a different issue later on. He was brought back, which I did not support. I made it clear to President Oakley about it. But at least at the time, in terms of removing him in the role that he played at the time, I mean, without divulging specifics of closed session, I was very instrumental in getting him pushed aside in favor of negotiators that believed in making the collective bargaining process work better than it had been with him at the helm.
Millie?
What is your understanding of AB 1725 and shared governance? Do you think coalition consultation should be extended to classified staff?
Absolutely. I believe maybe if the letter of the law in 1725, I mean, I'll admit I haven't read it word for word, but I know the gist of it and what it requires. Maybe the letter of the law doesn't require classified staff, only faculty, but I believe the spirit of the law is that all stakeholders at the college that contribute to making us a good institution should be included in decision-making process. And I think maybe I know there's been a lot of disappointment with some decisions that have been made with some of the committees that President Oakley has created, but some, like the Academic Council and the President's Leadership Council, I think my understanding are the essence of that. But there's also been a feeling that some stakeholders that want to be included in one of those that aren't. You know, I try to advocate to say that those things work, but that also that they include everybody.
And number 10, explain a time when you've explained and supported an unpopular policy. Describe your reaction to this conflict. Explain a time when you differed in opinion to a board of trustee, faculty, staff, student, or administrator.
I believe best example of where I supported an unpopular policy and one that most people here don't approve of my action would be a year before the program discontinuance when we voted on a lot of layoffs. That was probably the hardest decision I've ever had to make. I explained that when we had one of our coffee meetings, I explained to you how I felt about it, you said something like, I was right to make the slippery slope argument about Pastor Niemöller's quote about it's going to lead to other things. Maybe you were, but at least from my perspective, and I explained it that way then, and I'll continue to do so now, is that it was my feeling that, I thought a long time about it. I know that was another unanimous vote, unlike the one a year later, but that was, if there was one vote that I really lost sleep over, it was that one. I really did. You might have felt that you disagreed with all of us, but you felt that all of us just did that without thinking about it. Well, certainly, I can't speak for the other four, but certainly is not true for me. I thought a long time, I really considered for a long time voting against that, but at the end of the day, and the way I explained it is that, my central promise when I first declared my candidacy for the first term was that I would prioritize the classroom, that I would, and I at least saw that vote, that's what I was able to do, as being consistent with that I could, it doesn't make it any more right, the people that lost their jobs, but I kind of felt that it was, with the bad budget situation, this is how we're going to, how we're going to improve our budget situation so that we don't have to make the kind of cuts that we make a year later that do affect the classroom. And it's also the big reason why I voted no on the program discontinuance. And I don't know, maybe, I still like to think that, and explaining it now, I still like to think that if we had not done that unpopular thing a year earlier, budget situation would have been worse, and maybe the program discontinuance situation this past year would have been even worse than it was. That's how I justify it. But as far as the programs themselves go, restoring the jobs there, I made my position clear on that. As far as differing with the board, I think I've answered both of those questions with what I just said. Where I differed with the board on that. That's the obvious one in open session. As far as closed session, once again, that's I can't divulge the specifics there, but there's a lot of areas where, and it's disappointing. Even in my first term, I really had that difficulty that there's a feeling that all board members just vote yes on everything, that that there's no dissension in the ranks because they don't see some of the stuff that goes on behind closed session, and I'm not at liberty to tell you what goes on. I think it's good that the second term there's been at least one vote where, at least on my part, you can see that's not the case, and hopefully now people will believe me a little better when I say the stuff that's not part of the public record in closed session. The same thing happens a lot, but I can't tell you where.
Over the past year, LBCC went through a destructive discontinuance process. How have you received feedback from your constituents to help inform the vote you cast?
Well, I'd like to say that, I give myself credit for the work I did, but a contentious like this, I didn't have to seek it out. It sought me. I got it, and it was not just, the big reason, besides the fact that I felt that voting yes on this program discontinuance would have been a violation of my #1 promise when I first started running, it's the feedback I got from the community, and particularly the fact that it was not just people who work at the college whose jobs are affected by this. Members of the community whose sons, daughters, grandchildren were in these programs. I can take credit for one thing. I promised early on that I would make myself available. I would put contact information right there on the website, on my trustee bio on our website, which my colleagues have not done. I did that, and I'm sure it's because of that the members of the community that wanted to speak out found me, and I can't speak for the others, but you know, I'm assuming that's where they found my information. But yeah, I got bombarded with emails from the community, telephone calls, and I listened.
Describe your campaign organization, plan, message, community support, committed sources of funding, and amount raised to date. How do you assess your chances of working?
It's a little early on this time. I like the fact that the PAC is wanting to make their decisions early on. The downside of that is it's before, I'll admit, I haven't really started, I don't have an organization together yet. I mean, I'm hoping that based on my record of the past 4 years that my building an organization can start right here. I want your support, I need it, and I'm hoping I can build from there. I haven't started raising money yet, but I can, I will, and as far as raising money, getting endorsements, I believe, I was going to get ahead of myself into 13. I'll come back to that when you ask it. I believe I've shown, and there's at least one person in this room that knows he's done it with me. I mean, twice my commitment to actually do the legwork, knock on every door. I've done it twice before. If needs be, I'll do it again. And you guys have seen me do it.
Okay. What community groups or leaders, civic education, professional, political community, can you count on to support your candidacy?
As far as count on, I haven't started my organization. I haven't requested them yet, but I expect it should. I mean, 4 years ago, most community leaders, I've worked with most of the elected officials here in Long Beach. I got almost all of them unanimously. I assume that I can expect the support of most of them. I'm guessing maybe because of doing what my vote on the program discontinuance, which people here at the college like, maybe some of them will not like. I expect at least one or two of them I will probably lose their support this time because of doing the right thing here. But I do expect to have the support of most community leaders. I've supported them in their candidacies for Congress, Assembly, whatever, and hope to have theirs again this time.
Explain your prior involvement in campaigns. And do you have the stamina required to withstand the stress of a contested election? How will you withstand the stress of a contested election?
Okay, I did get ahead of myself answering that question for number 12. I have the prior involvement campaign, not just in my own twice, but with other local elected officials and actually state and national as well. In fact, it was the work I've done on their campaign, works I've done working with the Democratic Party is the principal reason why I had the support of these individuals 4 years ago, and expect to have the support of most of them this time around. And I think I already covered the idea of dealing with a stressful campaign, actually not just raising the money, raising the endorsements, but doing the actual grunt work, knocking on doors. I do it, and I will again if I have to.
Thank you. Is there anything else? We are at the conclusion of the interview. Is there anything else you would like to tell the Political Action Coalition?
I think I've said it all. I think you've seen me the past 4 years. You know where I stand, and I think you know what you can expect of me in the next 4 years. And I hope to work with you. I hope things improve at the college, things get better at the college in general, and specifically in the relationship with myself and all my other colleagues on the board, whoever they might be, come April.
Thank you.
Mr. Bowen, we appreciate you taking this time out and expressing your view, taking the time to answer our questions. And within the future, we'll let you know as far as what our results are and what our thoughts are. We do appreciate you taking the time this morning.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mark.